Well, the DA's federal executive has now asked its Federal Legal Commission to investigate the public spat between its leader, John Steenhuisen, and his former Environmental Affairs Minister, Dion George. On Friday, George released a statement reacting to Steenhuisen's decision to remove him from cabinet, saying he had been the victim of a smear campaign. George also says he will vindicate himself against people who have claimed he was guilty of wrongdoing, including a publication that made a particular claim against him. George has also said that as federal finance chair of the DA, it had to remove Steenhuisen's DA credit card because it was being used to order Uber Eats meals for Steenhuisen's family, or that's the claim. Meanwhile, the NSPCA has said it wants to know why Willies Oukamp was appointed to the position of Environmental Affairs Minister when he has close links to the hunting industry and will now be making decisions that will affect government's policy on conservation. The DA spokesperson, Karabo Khakhau, joins us now. Karabo, good afternoon to you. So we have two different claims being put here. What is the Legal Commission going to investigate?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Good afternoon to the people of South Africa. Thank you so much for having me. So what the FLC is going to be investigating is any and all breaches of the DA's constitutions and our values and principles. You would know that our FLC, which is the disciplinary body of the party, the Federal Legal Commission, works like any other disciplinary committee of any organization or any enterprise, where if there is a charge or a complaint that has been leveled against anybody, that it is their job to fully investigate whether those claims are true or not, and if they are true, to what extent are they in breach of our constitution, and what the remedial actions moving forward will be, which once the investigation has concluded, it will then serve before the federal executive for consideration on whether we action the recommendations that would have been provided by the FLC, make amendments, or what we do moving forward.
OK. And just to confirm the sort of fact on this, will they then investigate the claim that your leader, John Steenhuisen, was using the DA credit card for personal meals, for personal items?
Yeah, so what the FLC will investigate is everything, any and everything that is leveled before it. And the investigation is not just about John Steenhuisen as our federal leader and Dr. Dion George as the federal finance chairperson, but any and all other individuals who are involved, because you would know that the reports have not just been about Steenhuisen and George, but they have had anonymous figures in there as well. So that's what the investigation is going to be. But in the meantime, what we've also done beyond our call for the investigation on this matter is to also issue, I don't want to call them gag orders, but we've issued disciplinary notices to everybody to say it serves the party no interest, certainly not the Republic of South Africa, who depends on a functioning democratic alliance and its image, to be having these public spats in the media, whereas there is a well-constituted and proper mechanism within the party to ventilate these issues, being the FLC.
Okay.
And the reason why it is important for this to happen quickly, Stephen, is because at the heart of what the Democratic Alliance offers to the people of our country is accountability. And that's what we want to be able to show. But we also offer ethical leadership, which is what we also want to test.
OK, I just want to clarify a few facts, because as you know, there's quite a lot in the public domain. It might not all be true. Is it true that Dion George rescinded John Steenhuisen's DA credit card? Is that true?
That conversation was held by the Federal Finance Committee, which I do not sit on, but they made those conclusions, and I haven't heard anybody else saying that is not true.
OK. And what would be the normal procedure for a DA person who has a credit card and then misused it? I mean, I'm trying to think of an apolitical example, Karabo, and I'm afraid I'm going to pick on you here. If it happened to you, what would happen? I mean, I presume there would be, like in a company, quite severe action.
Yeah. So look, the federal finance concludes its own financial matters. The only time the Federal Finance Committee comes to the federal executive is when to give an overall review or report on the state of the finances. So any and all such cases are dealt by Federal Finance, which is chaired by Dion George, which other provincial financial chairpersons serve on, so they would conclude on it. So what would happen is any person that the the finance team gives certain benefits, they obviously then check regularly on those benefits to what extent are they still used in line with what the terms and conditions are. And if they feel that there must be an amendment, then they do so. In this case, though, it's not a case of it ever having been taken to FLC to say, we think there is a gross violation of the terms and conditions of the use of the credit card. It's something that's only surfacing now. And again, I said, because I also run a risk here of being my own FLC, which I'm not mandated to do in this conversation. What part of the investigation of the FLC that FedEx has mandated to FLC would be to test the whole truth around what happened, at what point did who get not produce the receipt, if that's ever a case, and in a case where it was a receipt, where was the proof of where the expenditure was. All of those other things will then be ventilated by the FLC, because they, quite frankly, I sit on FedEx and I'm telling you, these things did not come before us. We're also very much wowed by the things we're reading out there.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate that. I think it's caught a lot of us by surprise. You made the point that the FLC, or Legal Commission, is like a disciplinary body, and I accept that. But the person being investigated here, so two people are being investigated, but one of them is no ordinary member. He's actually the leader of the DA. Can we have an assurance? I mean, well, let me put this another way. Will the FLC investigate John Steenhuisen in the same way as it would any other member of the DA who faced similar accusations?
No, I mean, Dr. Dion George is also not any regular member. He's the guy responsible for the purse of the organization. And I do not know the identities of the other people who are being investigated, because their names have not been publicized like the names of the two colleagues of mine who have been publicized. But the DA has a consistent track record of not favoring a person, irrespective of whether you are the leader, whether you are a mayor, whether you are whatever. We run our processes with integrity. We're honest with how we go about it. And we don't have an animal farm situation where the rules apply leniently to one person versus the other. And that is why FedEx last night took that decision to say, because we do not favor one individual over the other or protect others over the other, that we mandate that FLC, as a matter of urgency, broadens its net to investigate and thoroughly go through with a teeth comb all issues concerning what has been reported. And once we know whether, if at all of the things that have been in the media are true or not, once we know that, then FedEx will deliberate. And I can assure you now, and the people of this country, that the FedEx that I sit on it's not a Mickey Mouse FedEx. We are people who take our jobs very seriously. Okay. We're people who take the representation of the people of this country seriously, and equally we will handle matters as such.
All right, Karabo, I'm sorry. There's a lot to get through in all of this. This came into the public eye for most of us for the first time when Dion George was removed from cabinet. Now, that was a DA decision. Who in the DA made the decision to remove him from cabinet?
So the process for the public's interest, the leader of any caucus makes proposals to the FedEx for adoption or amendment. So in this case, the leader of the parliamentary caucus, as well as the cabinet caucus of the DA, would be the federal leader as per the constitution of the party, John Steenhuisen. He brought then the recommendations, and then after he tabled his recommendations, then FedEx deliberated on them as such.
Okay, so FedEx made the decision on Steenhuisen's request.
Yes.
Why? Why was he removed? What had Dion George done that required him to be removed at this moment?
I mean, Stephen, FedEx was not given a charge sheet against Dion George of anything that he did wrong that constituted him being removed. That was not even part of the conversation at FedEx at all. The conversation, as is part of the communication that was given immediately thereafter, was the presentation by the leader to FedEx was a reimagination of contributions within the government of national unity to best align with, in his assessment as the caucus leader, skills that are necessary and competence that will get us to the ultimate goal of growing the economy, alleviating poverty and creating as many jobs as possible. So it is on the basis of that that the proposal was tabled before FedEx. It was never a case of, hey, I think there's something wrong with this guy, I don't want him by. Because if that were the case, then FedEx would have said, but you don't just do that. You go to FLC if there's a problem with somebody, and then only if there is a proven or investigated misconduct, then can we move forward. So that's not what FedEx was not informed much.
Okay, so there was no charge sheet against Dion George, accept that. But the same federal executive then made the decision to appoint Willie Oukamp, and I presume that would also have been on the recommendation of the leader of the caucus, John Steenhuisen?
That's true, yes,
Okay.
as is his prerogative, because, again, I want to emphasize that I can't just Karabo decide I want to make myself the Minister of Higher Education, even though I'd love to do that. But it is the recommendation of any caucus leader, as is the case within the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, to do that would be Ellen Windy. In the city of Cape Town, that would be Jordan Hill-Lewis. That's the principle.
Okay. Oukamp is obviously close to the hunting lobby. Was he appointed because he's close to the hunting lobby?
That was never served as motivation either. And the proximity of Oukamp to the hunting lobby is something that even I can't tell you where it starts and where it ends. I do not know that. And that certainly does not form part of the motivation that was given to FedEx for Oukamp's consideration.
Sure. I mean, I accept that. But we know that he's close to the hunting lobby. He's told us on his own Facebook page. We've seen him at these events. And if that is the case, then why would someone like that, who is clearly involved in a lobby in a very important area, suddenly appointed to the Department of Environmental Affairs?
I mean, I think that's based on perception, it's a fair question to ask, Stephen. But what I cannot do is to respond on a hypothetical conversation or thinking process which never happened in FedEx. I can't do that.
Okay, so you can't deny then, as a spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance, that he was appointed to change government policy on hunting, on environmental issues. I mean, clearly he was.
No, Stephen, hear me well. The reason why Willie Oukamp was appointed to become the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment was never on FedEx's table based on a policy position which FedEx was the opinion that he holds better than anybody else. That was not the conversation at FedEx.
Okay. Would the DA like to change government policy with regards to conservation?
The DA's policy position on environmental issues has always been very clear that we want to make sure that there's a preservation of environmental affairs, but most importantly that we are able to clamp down on illicit economies that exist across board from land economy to the ocean economy, but at the same time that we find ways to maximize job creation opportunities to grow the economy so that we're able to see the GDP effect that we want for poverty alleviation in the country. And funny enough, as I'm having this conversation with you right now, the DA is hosting a policy conference today online. So there's another Zoom happening in the other room. And part of the conversations that are happening is our position papers and our policies on environmental issues, which once the policy commission or conference is concluded, we will also be in a position to communicate.
Karabo, if the leader of the ANC decided to have a reimagining of their cabinet caucus and appointed, removed someone from the Department of Energy and appointed someone who on their Facebook had spent lots of time at events arranged by the oil industry, I mean, what would you as the DA say? And isn't that exactly what's happened here?
I mean, look, again, I want to say to you, Stephen, that the truth here is you can't really gag human beings from having extracurricular activities or deciding what to do with their lives, because that's quite frankly anti-democratic, because people have the freedom to associate. While some enjoy hunting, some enjoy swimming, others just enjoy going to a pub and having a jowl about it, right? So what we must now not have this conversation go into is the assumption again, because I hear your question, and again, I want to say it's a legitimate question. But what I want you to be fair about in what you're asking me is I can only give you a response about the decisions that are formally before the leadership of the organization and nothing else. I can't give you a comment on speculations around shoulda, coulda, woulda, or perhaps backdoor conversations that took place, if indeed they take place.
Okay.
That's it.
There are 87 members of the DA who are members of Parliament of the National Assembly. Of all of those 87 people, the one person that the DA has decided to appoint as Minister of Environmental Affairs is a person who spends his time at hunting events and puts it on Facebook.
I mean, look, again, we all serve in different portfolios based on our different strengths. I form part of the 87 people, but my niche is not in forests or fisheries, and I wouldn't even know what to do when I get there. What I do know 100% is higher education. The same principle is true for other people. We are a caucus that is diverse in what we're able to put on the table for as the best representation for the people of our country. And so I don't think it's fair to assume that 87 of us can all do the same thing, because we're not homogeneous in our skill sets and our knowledge bases and our expertise. So that's that. And again, it is the prerogative of any leader within the organization to organize their cabinet the way that they wish. And even though that comes before FedEx, it is then FedEx's responsibility to then assess those decisions. And based on the information that was presented to FedEx, those decisions happened. It was only after those decisions happened that the things that you're even asking me about right now are now part of considerations in the public domain and not even on FedEx's table. But I want to conclude this and say, Stephen, that part of the questions that are out there about what's what and what's what, FLC, if there is a breach or a manipulation of processes or whatever, if that is the case, FLC will then be able to interrogate and come back to FedEx and tell us what's going on.
Karabo Khakhau, thanks very much indeed. National spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance.